There's a unique kind of silence in gymnasiums just before a school event begins. The buzz of old wiring in the ceiling, the low hum of air conditioning fighting with body heat, the scrape of chairs being pulled a few inches this way or that. Parents stand awkwardly near bleachers, adjusting camera angles, smoothing hair, checking the time on their phones like this might be the moment their child becomes a person worth being proud of. I had arrived early like always, not because I wanted a good seat, but because I had helped organize the damn thing. I signed the rental contract, coordinated with the school secretary for the AV equipment, emailed the insurance certificates 3 different times. When the fire marshal had questions about crowd capacity, it was my phone that rang. Not Laura's, not Tyler's real dad, not anyone else's, mine. But on the day of the event, no one remembered that. They remembered balloons. They remembered cupcakes. They remembered that the chairs were lined up evenly in long, clean rows, and maybe they even thought someone at the school had handled that. That's the thing about invisible work. It's only invisible because people choose not to see. I sat in the back, voluntarily, not out of shyness or pride, but because I knew better. I knew how these things went. Laura, of course, sat near the front. Reserved seating, unofficial but understood. The territory of mothers who had never missed a conference or bake sale. Her dress was new, or maybe just new-looking. Light blue, patterned, too delicate for folding chairs and gymnasium floors. But it didn't matter. She looked beautiful, and distant, always distant even when she smiled. Tyler sat beside her, slouched just enough to look bored, not enough to be scolded. He had his father's mouth, the kind that curls at the corners, half smirk, half sneer. He didn't get it from me. He got nothing from me, and he made that clear every day he could. The program started with some principal speech, the kind you forget while it's still being spoken. Then came the awards. Tyler was called up for something small, leadership or improvement or some plastic badge virtue that parents clap politely for. He walked to the microphone with a confidence that looked borrowed from a boy much older. And he took the mic like he was preparing for a show. That's when it happened. He looked out over the crowd, scanned, found his mark, me. I didn't think he'd seen me. I hadn't waved, hadn't done anything to make myself visible. But he found me anyway, held my gaze, and then he said it. Only our real dad matters anyway. Laughter. Not roaring, not immediate, but it rippled. Like someone dropped a stone into a still lake and the shame rolled outward in expanding rings. A few adults chuckled. Kids laughed without knowing why. A group of teenagers in the corner snorted and nudged each other. One woman in a gray cardigan leaned toward her friend and whispered something behind her hand. I heard the word step. I didn't need the rest. My ears rang. For a moment I didn't process it. Not fully. I just stood there, as if my body hadn't gotten the signal yet. As if the words needed to be repeated again, louder, to cut the final thread of denial. But they didn't need to be louder. They had already done their work. Tyler stepped away from the mic, back toward Laura, and the program continued like nothing had happened. No one apologized. No one corrected him, least of all his mother. She smiled. Not at me, at him. And maybe that was the part that hurt most. The laugh was cruel, sure. The jab obvious. But the silence after it? That was a different kind of violence. Cold. Practiced. Complicit. I watched Laura reach up to fix Tyler's collar. A proud mother smoothing the edges of her boy after a performance. She whispered something in his ear. He grinned wider. And I realized something sharp and sudden. This wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't an accident. This had been planned. Rehearsed. A small moment designed not just to embarrass, but to erase. I wasn't an inconvenience. I was a problem being solved quietly. That was the moment I stopped pretending. For years I had told myself that love, if not love, then loyalty could be earned. That if I showed up enough, paid enough, gave enough, stood in the rain holding umbrellas, sat through school meetings, kept my voice level during arguments, swallowed my pride, that eventually something resembling family would grow around me. But this wasn't growth. This was rot. And I had been planting in poisoned soil. So I stood. I didn't look for Laura. I didn't try to catch Tyler's eye. I didn't wave. I didn't make a speech, didn't shout, didn't demand attention. I just walked out, past the AV table with the tangled cords, past the woman handing out flyers I had printed, past the assistant principal who nodded at me like he wasn't sure where he'd seen me before. I walked through the double doors and into the parking lot, where the cold evening air hit my face like a second slap, quieter, but clearer. The sky was the color of steel. Cars lined the lot in uneven rows, headlights catching the edges of the building. I unlocked mine, slid into the seat, and sat there for a long moment, just breathing. No one followed. No text from Laura. No call. No apology. That told me more than the microphone ever could. On the drive home, I kept the radio off. The quiet filled the cabin. I took the long way back, past the old gas station, past the church where we had once taken family Christmas photos. I passed the grocery store where I bought birthday cakes Tyler never thanked me for. The hardware store where I bought tools to fix a leaky sink he clogged. The pharmacy where I picked up Laura's migraine prescriptions while she texted someone else in the passenger seat. It wasn't a drive. It was a funeral procession. And the thing being buried was the last of my illusions. When I got home, I didn't turn the lights on. I sat in the living room in the dark, the ambient hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen the only sound. On the wall hung a framed photo from 2 summers ago. Tyler, Laura, and me on a hiking trail, smiling for a stranger's camera. Tyler wasn't really smiling. His eyes had been narrowed, his shoulders turned subtly away. I cropped it to make it look more natural. Funny, I thought I had been cropping out a tree. Turns out I was cropping out the truth. I went into my office and opened the file drawer, pulled out a folder thick with contracts, receipts, checklists. The planning for the school event, the one they laughed through. My name was on every page. Not his, mine. The venue had been in my name. The insurance. The AV rentals. Even the water bottles came from my account. A rushed Amazon order when Laura said she forgot. I had paid for all of it. I had made it possible. And in return, I was handed a public execution. Death by smirk, silence, and selective memory. The clock ticked softly behind me. The furnace groaned once. Somewhere outside, a dog barked in the distance. Inside me, something settled. Not rage, not grief, just clarity. I had spent years trying to build something that would not hold me. I had paid the price of fatherhood without ever being granted the title. And tonight, in front of neighbors, teachers, strangers, the bill had been delivered with interest. No more. I closed the folder. That night, I didn't sleep in the bedroom. I lay on the couch in the den, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of a house that wasn't mine anymore. Not really. The next morning, I made coffee. No one texted. No one asked where I'd gone. And that told me everything I needed to know. I didn't go to work the next day. I didn't call in either. There was nothing dramatic about it. No slam doors, no sick day excuse. I simply didn't leave the house. I woke up early, sat at the kitchen table with a mug of bitter coffee, and stared at the folder I had pulled out the night before. My name was on everything. I flipped through the documents one by one, fingers steady. Venue rental, Michael Gerard. Equipment lease, Michael Gerard. Certificate of insurance, school liability rider, emergency contact sheet, all bearing the same signature, mine. I even found the email confirming the payment for the janitorial overtime. No mention of Laura. No cosign from the school's official parent liaison. Not even a placeholder for Tyler's biological father. It was as if I had built the foundation of the event and they'd held the ribbon cutting without me. And if something had gone wrong, a kid tripping on a cable, someone slipping on spilled juice, a parent twisting an ankle on the uneven stairs, the lawsuits would have landed in my lap. Not Tyler's, not Laura's, mine. They had used me, quietly, efficiently, and now they were brushing me out of the frame like an extra in a photo they wanted to retake. It was legal, but it wasn't right. So I made a call. "Benson," I said when the line clicked. "It's time." Mark Benson had been my attorney since my first marriage. A man who spoke in clipped, tired sentences and never wore a tie unless someone died. He handled small things for me now, Tax paperwork, insurance renewals, the occasional contract review. He never asked about Laura. He didn't have to. I told him what happened. Not the feelings, just the facts. The event, the signatures, the absence of thanks, the public removal of my presence. There was a long pause. I could hear him flipping through a keyboard. Then a quiet sigh. So if someone fell and cracked their head open on that stage you rented, he said, you'd be liable for the venue and the school's exposure? Yes. And you're telling me not a single thank you, credit, or acknowledgement was given publicly? Correct. Another pause. You're not looking for legal protection, Michael. You're looking for proof that you were invisible. I need to know, I said, where I stand. In their eyes. In the laws. Well, he said, the law says you're on the hook. The family says you're not even in the room. Silence. Then, what do you want to do? I didn't answer him. Not directly. Instead, I asked him to send me copies of everything. Scanned PDFs, digital trails, any correspondence that referenced me as the party of record. I wanted to see it all in black and white. He agreed without hesitation. I'll mark it urgent. I spent the rest of the day cataloging my own erasure. Every receipt became a needle. Every digital signature a wound. I wasn't angry, not yet. Just numb. The kind of numb that comes after the impact, when your body is still trying to figure out how much blood it's lost. I opened my inbox. Searched keywords. Event. Rental. Payment. Schedule. There they were, the conversations I had carried alone. Each one an invisible brick in a structure they now called community. Laura wasn't even CC'd on most of them. When she did show up, it was usually to forward me a task she didn't want to handle herself. Can you take care of this? Just need your signature here. Sorry. I meant to handle this, but I've been swamped with work. I had answered every one. Even now, I wasn't sure what made it hurt more, the betrayal or the realization that I had volunteered for it. By evening, the documents started arriving. Mark was efficient. Inside a zipped folder were 23 files. Contracts, insurance forms, payment authorizations. And there it was again. My name printed cleanly across every form. Not one mention of Tyler's father. No financial backstop. No alternate contacts. The school had trusted me, because I was the one who showed up. And now I understood why they laughed. Because none of them knew. To them, I wasn't the man who made the event happen. I was just the man who didn't belong. The man being reminded, by a boy he'd helped raise, that presence doesn't equal parenthood. Not in their eyes. But the law didn't care about biology. The law cared about responsibility. And responsibility was mine entirely. I printed the documents, laid them across the dining table like evidence in a trial where I was both defendant and prosecutor. The house was quiet. Laura hadn't come home yet. Tyler had probably gone straight to his father's for the weekend. I didn't check. I didn't care. Somewhere between page 8 and page 12, it hit me. I had built my own cage. Every favor, every payment, every time I said, sure, I'll take care of it. I had forged another bar, another lock, another chain, and I called it love. But it wasn't love. It was servitude, and I was done. At around 10:43 p.m. Laura walked in. She looked surprised to see me. Not guilty, just surprised, like I was furniture that had moved on its own. Hey, she said, dropping her bag by the door. You didn't go in today? No. She hovered near the entryway, watching me from across the room. Her eyes landed on the table, the papers, the mess I had made of our tidy life. What's all that? Everything I paid for, I said. Everything I signed for. Everything I was liable for last night. She didn't move. Tyler made a joke, I said flatly. Said only his real dad matters. Into a microphone. In front of everyone. You didn't stop him. She looked away. He's a teenager. He didn't mean. He meant it. I stood up. Walked to the table. Held out a page, the venue lease. You know who signed for this? She didn't answer. Me. Not his real dad. Me. I dropped it. Picked up another. Insurance? Me. Another. Equipment? Me. And another. Security deposit? Me. I wasn't yelling. My voice was steady, cold, the way water freezes before it cracks. You let me pay for everything, then watched while I was erased. It wasn't like that, she whispered. Yes, it was. She took a slow breath. You're overreacting. You're hurt. But Tyler's just a kid. He's angry, confused. He lashes out. And you, I said, are his mother. You stood there and said nothing. A long silence stretched between us. She looked at the table, then at me. You think I wanted him to say that? No, I said. I think you didn't care enough to stop him. She blinked. I walked past her, into the kitchen, poured the last of the coffee into a mug that had long gone cold. I drank it anyway. From the hallway, she asked, "What are you going to do?" The words were quiet, but not scared, just expectant, like she already knew the answer. I stared into the mug for a long time. Then I said, "From now on, I don't pay for things I'm not part of." No reply, just the sound of her footsteps retreating down the hall. That night, I slept in the guest room. Not out of spite, just necessity. The marriage hadn't ended, not officially. But something had broken, silently, permanently, like a rib snapping beneath the surface, invisible to the eye, unmistakable in the pain it leaves behind. The next morning I woke early, made a list, called the school, asked for all future events to be redirected to Laura, told them I would no longer be the point of contact for rentals, planning, or sponsorships. I didn't explain why. I didn't owe them that. Then I called Mark again. I want to make sure I'm removed from any liability moving forward. I told him. No more exposure. No more personal responsibility. Draft whatever you have to. I understand, he said. And he did. By noon, I had withdrawn from everything. I didn't burn the bridges. I just took my name off the deeds. And for the first time in years, I felt weight leave my shoulders. Not peace, but something close to it. A week passed. Not much was said. Laura moved through the house like someone running on muscle memory. Meals reheated, laundry folded, lights turned off at night. But we weren't speaking. Not really. Our words had become tools. Questions clipped to necessity. Answers doled out with surgical precision. Did you pay the water bill? Yes. Do you need the car tomorrow? No. Did Tyler call? No. And he didn't. Not once. The house wasn't angry, it was hollow. Something had been dug out of its center, and no one was bothering to patch the hole. We just stepped around it. Meanwhile, I got busy. Mark delivered everything I asked for. He'd put together a clean, precise document. Removal of name and liability from the school's parent planning list, insurance cancellation notices, even a note to the rental company stating that future contracts must be in the name of someone else. Not me. He didn't ask why I wanted it done so quickly. But I knew he understood. Men like us didn't need to ask for motives. The facts were enough. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. But it was clarity in writing. I sent copies of the documents to the school principal, to the district office, to the PDA lead. No explanations, no dramatics. Just, please find attached updates regarding liability and contacts for future events. Simple. Efficient. Final. Then something strange happened. People started asking questions. The principal replied within an hour. "Hi, Michael. Just confirming. Are you no longer involved in school support going forward?" Then a teacher. "Sorry to hear this. Is everything okay?" Then the district clerk. "Hi, we're updating our records. Could you confirm who will be the new financial point of contact for school events on your end?" It was subtle at first. A trickle of confusion. But soon, it was clear. The illusion was cracking. Because they hadn't known. They hadn't known it was me footing the bill, signing the checks, holding the whole charade together with invisible string. They thought it was Laura, or the real dad, or some shared effort behind the scenes. They had no idea that every piece of the puzzle had one name printed at the bottom. Mine. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I booked a table. Small restaurant. Quiet place on the edge of town. One of those diners that serves coffee all day and whose leather booths smell faintly of syrup and old linoleum. I picked the booth near the window. I didn't want grandeur. I wanted precision. I told Laura to bring Tyler. No details. Just, meet me at 6:30. Don't be late. She didn't ask why. They arrived together. Laura sat first, her eyes already tired. Tyler slouched in beside her. Hoodie pulled halfway over his face. That same look of smug indifference painted on like war paint. Neither of them looked at me. They just sat there, the woman I had given years to, and the boy who had thrown my name into a microphone like garbage. I placed a stack of papers on the table. No menus, no pleasantries, just the documents. Neat, unfolded. This is everything I've signed for in the past 3 years, I said. Tyler looked at them, uninterested. Laura's face didn't move. I'm not here to argue, I said. I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm just here to show you the truth. I slid the first page toward them. The venue lease for last week's event. My name. Next. The insurance policy. My money. Next. The sound equipment. My account. Page after page. Document after document. No commentary. Just evidence. I didn't embellish. Didn't raise my voice. I wanted the weight of each paper to speak for itself. Laura looked pale. Tyler shifted slightly but said nothing. I want something very clear between us, I said. I'm not asking to be loved. I'm not asking to be called Dad. I never have. I've never tried to replace anyone. Silence. I just wanted honesty. Still nothing. So I leaned forward, voice low. But when you stand in a room full of people and tell them that only your real dad matters, after years of me covering every damn thing so your real dad can vanish without consequence, that's not just disrespect. That's deceit. Tyler rolled his eyes. I was joking. I stared at him. You weren't. Laura reached for his arm, but he jerked it away. I've never once told you who to love, I said. But I expected that if I was going to carry this family on my back, you wouldn't spit in my face for it. No response. So I opened my folder again and slid out the final paper. A list of upcoming financial transitions. Tuition, utilities, monthly allowances, insurance, all being reassigned. Or discontinued. This is the last month anything comes from my account, I said. After that, you can figure it out yourselves. Laura finally spoke. This isn't fair, she said quietly. We should have talked. I tried. I interrupted. For years. Every time I came home to silence. Every time he ignored me. Every time you made excuses. Her face twisted, not in sadness. In shame. But I didn't flinch. I won't fund a family that pretends I don't exist, I said. Tyler muttered something, low and sharp. What was that? I asked. He looked up at me, eyes hot with something close to anger. You think this makes you noble? No, I said. It makes me done. We sat there in silence after that. The waitress came once, stood awkwardly, then backed away. No one was eating. No one was drinking. We weren't there for food. I stood to leave, left a 20 on the table for the coffee I never drank. I won't interfere, I said. You don't want me in your life? I'm out. Fully. Not just emotionally, financially, legally. Laura opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. I'm not punishing you. I'm just letting you live by the rules you created. And then I walked out. The night air was cold, crisp. I stood on the curb for a moment, listening to the wind move through the street like breath through hollow lungs. Inside, they stayed seated. I didn't look back. By the time I got home, I had 5 missed calls. I didn't listen to any of them. Instead, I sat down, opened my laptop, and began listing the items I had purchased for Tyler over the years. Not to collect, just to see it. Every line was a memory I had funded. A trip, a jacket, a laptop, a bike. None of it mattered now, except as proof that I had given more than I'd ever been asked to. The illusion was shattered. I wasn't a father. I was an ATM with a backstory, and I had pulled the plug. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in years. And when I woke up, The house was still standing, but something fundamental had shifted. The center was gone. I didn't leave all at once. It wasn't a dramatic suitcase at the door moment or a late-night argument that drove me out into the rain. I left the way a tree falls slowly from the inside. By the time it hits the ground, the rot was already there. The first thing I removed was my name from the lease. Took one phone call. Laura didn't know. She wouldn't notice until renewal time, when she'd ask about splitting costs and I'd say, "That's not my house anymore." And even then, maybe she'd still call it our home, still assume I'd stay, still assume I'd help with whatever was broken. She never understood how much of that place I held together. Financially, structurally, emotionally. The second thing I removed was my key from the hallway hook. I left it on the table one morning before work. She texted me hours later. "Did you forget your key?" I didn't answer. I had rented a one-bedroom apartment across town. Nothing big, nothing worth showing off. Just clean floors, quiet neighbors, and a view of the parking lot that asked for nothing. No framed photos, no laughter in the walls, no teenage boy sulking past me like I was a stranger in his habitat. It was beautiful in its silence. The first night I slept there, I woke up without dread in my chest. That was new. No footsteps overhead, no slammed doors, no thuds of bass-heavy music vibrating through shared ceilings. Just quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed and realized I hadn't clenched my jaw in hours. Freedom doesn't feel like joy at first. It feels like absence, like something's missing, and you can't decide if that's good or bad. But after a while, you stop waiting for the old noises, and then you understand. What's missing is the thing that was drowning you. I kept the job, kept the routine, woke at 6, poured coffee, drove downtown. But now, when I came home, I had no one expecting me to fix what they broke or pay what they promised. I'd lived so long as a solution that I forgot I was a man. Tyler never reached out. That surprised me less than it should have. Maybe he thought I'd come back once the bills piled up, once Laura wore thin, once the weight of real life came knocking. But I didn't, and I wouldn't, because this wasn't a punishment. It was a resignation. I had handed in my notice to a job that never wanted me. Laura called twice in the first month. Both times I let it ring out. The second time she left a message. Her voice was flat, controlled. "You should at least talk to him. He's still a kid. He's going through a lot." I deleted it without replying, because I had talked. For years, I had shown up, paid up, stayed up late helping with homework that wasn't mine, sat through ceremonies where I was never mentioned. And when he stood before a crowd and told the world I didn't matter, she stood beside him in silence. Now she wanted words, but words were all I had left, and I wasn't giving them away for free anymore. One Saturday afternoon, I drove past the old house. Not on purpose, just habit. The yard looked different, overgrown. The porch light still worked, but the mailbox hung crooked on its hinge. I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. I just watched the shell of my old life slide past the window like a building in a ghost town. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived at my apartment. Not a message. A handwritten letter. Tyler's handwriting. It wasn't long. Just a page. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. It began. "I was just being stupid. Mom says you're not coming back. Are you really done?" There was no apology. Just confusion. Just a boy standing in the ruins, looking for the man who used to hold up the roof. I folded the letter once, set it on the table, never replied, because I had nothing left to explain. I had explained myself into silence. I had explained myself into debt, into exhaustion, into the background of a story where my role was never real. People talk about stepfatherhood like it's noble, like you're choosing to love someone else's child, and that makes you stronger. Maybe it does. But no one talks about what it feels like when that child grows up and spits out the truth they've always held, that you were just filling space, that your love wasn't requested, that your sacrifices were always optional, and worse, that their mother agrees, because silence is agreement. When Tyler stood on that stage and erased me, Laura had a choice: speak or disappear, and she chose the latter. just like she did in the restaurant, just like she did every time he rolled his eyes at me, every time he asked her for permission instead of listening to me, every time she told me not to take it personally. But it was personal. I gave my time, my name, my strength, and now I had taken it back. One night, I was sitting on the couch, the lamp casting a dull yellow glow across the room, when my phone buzzed. A message from Laura. Just one line. "He misses you." I stared at it, then typed, "No, he misses what I gave him." I hovered for a long time, then hit send. No reply, and that was fine. The apartment got quieter after that. Not because anything changed, but because I stopped waiting for noise. There's a relief that comes from abandonment, but only when you choose it yourself. When you walk away instead of being dragged out. When you realize you weren't part of the family, you were the scaffolding. And they were just waiting for the house to look pretty enough to tear you down. I thought about the years. The car I bought him. The phone upgrades. The endless meals, tuition installments, last-minute needs that appeared like clockwork. I thought about Christmas mornings when I sat in the corner while he thanked a father who never showed up. About the time he called me Dad once softly when I fixed his bike and then never again. I had built an altar for a God that never wanted worship. I didn't go to court, didn't ask for reimbursement, didn't send bills or itemized lists. My revenge wasn't financial. It was absence. And absence has a way of becoming visible over time, like a stain appearing after the water has dried. I started going on walks at dusk, just around the block, sometimes further. I passed other homes, lights on, families moving behind curtains, fathers sitting with their children. I didn't envy them. I didn't trust them. I just watched, knowing that behind some of those windows there was probably another man like me, doing the work, being the presence, paying the dues while someone else held the title. I wanted to knock on the glass and warn him, but I didn't, because some truths have to be lived, not spoken. It's been 6 months now. Laura hasn't called again. Tyler hasn't written. They've learned to survive without me, or at least pretend to. And me? I breathe easier. My bank account has healed. My back doesn't ache the way it used to. Sometimes I still hear his voice in my head. That moment on the stage, the smugness, the way the crowd laughed. It replays itself in slow motion, not as pain anymore, but as proof. Turning point. The moment the house collapsed and I stepped out from under it without a scratch. I think about what it means to give everything, and what it means when nothing is returned. I'm not bitter. Not anymore. Just clear. And so I ask you, was I wrong to leave? To take back what was mine and let them find their own way? Was it cruel? Or was it the only way to reclaim myself from the slow death of being needed, but never wanted? You tell me, if you had stood in my place, forgotten, erased, then blamed for walking away, what would you have done? What would you have carried? And when would you have set it down?